When we look at why we should do a year-end campaign, first and foremost, I hear board members say all the time, it's such a noisy time of year. Maybe we shouldn't do a campaign this year. It is a noisy time of year, and that's part of why you need to do a year-end campaign, because you want your message to be heard. To a degree, we do need to compete with our other nonprofit counterparts to make sure that our message is being heard. Secondly, this is the time of year when people feel most generous. As Roberta said, 31% of all donations to charity come in December. So we need to be asking for that money. Lastly, I don't know what it is. I mean, I keep telling people, I don't know if you know this or not, but you can actually give to charity year round. It doesn't just have to be in December. But we as Americans, whether you itemize or not, are very conditioned to giving at the end of the year. People are listening, they're paying attention. Get your message out there. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Natasha to walk us through the story brand framework. This is so important because throughout your campaign, you want to be using this framework to tell the story of the good work you're doing. Natasha?
Thanks, Angie. So many of you have heard of the story brand framework. We use it in all of our messaging with our nonprofit clients. And so I'm just going to hit on the 7 key elements that you want in every successful story. First, you're going to identify the character. Who is it that you are actually helping? And a lot of nonprofits in their letters actually don't talk about this, and they don't talk about the problem that they're solving for their character. Then you want to talk about yourself. You are the guide. You want to talk about how you bring credibility and empathy to the organization and how you're going to solve that problem. And then we want to talk about a plan of action. What is it that you're asking the donor to do? And for year-end appeals, you're obviously going to be asking them to donate. And so while throughout the year, you usually have volunteer, give, sign up for our newsletter, right now we're focusing on giving. And then you're going to call them to action directly, say donate, and how you're going to ask them to donate via online, mail, phone, and then you're going to talk a little bit about success and failure. If they don't give, what happens? People often actually avoid talking about failure, but it's good to sprinkle it into your stories. And then obviously we want to talk about the success. If they give to the campaign, what is it that your organization is able to do? And you want to have that big vision. You want to put that out there for your year-end campaign, because this is this time of the year when people are most generous. Now we want to talk about the 7 elements, how to use that story brand framework and put it into an effective campaign for your year end. First, you want to start off with a compelling opening. You want to really create an emotional connection and incorporate the word you in the very beginning of your letter, because you're grabbing them, you're trying to draw them into the story that you're telling. So you want to start off with a powerful story or statistic, although we recommend sticking to the story part and incorporating statistics into your letter as well. Immediately grab the reader's attention. That's what you want to do by using this emotionally connected story. Second, you want to state the clear and urgent need. Clearly state the problem your organization is addressing. A lot of nonprofits think, oh, they've heard from us, they know what we do, they know the problem that we're solving. But the truth is they're getting a lot of year-end appeals. And so you want to say very clearly and remind them again what the problem is that you're solving, and explain why that support is needed right now, and use concrete examples to illustrate that need. Third, we want to use very donor-centric language, using you and the donor's name frequently to make it personal. And Angie's going to show a few examples a little bit later on how you can incorporate that using mail merge, but it's very important to use both the donor's name and you in the letter. Emphasize the donor's role in making a difference, and also don't forget to show appreciation for past support. Often nonprofits are just hurriedly putting together the year-end campaign and don't take the time to really segment and figure out, okay, so these people actually are monthly givers. So let's talk about and acknowledge the support that they've given and thank them for that while we are asking for a year-end campaign as well. Next, you want to have a very specific ask. So clearly state what it is you're asking for. A lot of nonprofits say, give whatever you can, any amount helps, which, while true, and you can include that in the letter, you want to provide suggested giving levels. So we recommend 92, 100, and 107% of the last give, and explain what each of these giving levels can accomplish. Next, we want to have compelling visuals. So digitally, we want to use high quality images and colored images that support your message. But actually, what's interesting is for print, you want to use black and white because they perform better. You'll also want to incorporate infographics to display the impact data, because even though we're telling the story, we also want to use stats to support that need and also what you've accomplished and are able to accomplish with their support. And ensure that these visuals are emotionally resonant with the story and tied to the story that you're telling. Next, you want to have a very clear call to action. Make it obvious how to donate and include multiple giving options. So online, mail, phone, have that QR code so they can quickly scan, because a lot of people are getting those letters, but they're often scanning the QR or going online to donate. So make sure you have those different options, and even train your staff. If you're accepting donations by phone and they're calling them up, let them know about the year-end campaign. A lot of organizations forget to let their team know about the year-end campaign and what is it that they're doing when somebody calls to make a donation. The donor does not want to have the experience that they call the organization and they don't know how to accept the donation. Create a sense of urgency. Donate before December 31st. Because even though a lot of people are not itemizing, most people don't itemize, there is something to be said about people just have that sense of urgency. And like Angie said, they're used to giving before year end, and it's a season of generosity. So create that urgency, and they want to help you accomplish a very specific goal by a very specific deadline. Also, don't forget to update them after the campaign is done and throughout the time of where you are on the campaign, because people get excited about that. They're excited about being a part of a community and being a part of a group of people that are working towards a very specific goal. And lastly, please have a PS. So many readers actually look at the postscript first, so make it count by reiterating the main ask and at a final compelling point or deadline. And because your campaign page is 2 pages and you'll have the postscript at the end, don't forget to have maybe a little bit of an arrow or something that lets people know to turn over to read the other side of the page. All right, I'm going to hand it to Angie to talk about our 6 communication tactics to make that year-end campaign successful.
Thank you, Natasha. These 6 communication tactics, we've used these. We've tried them time and time again. We use them with our clients every year to produce results. So we're going to look today at a specific example of Raise Up Families. And last year, using these 6 communication techniques, we were able to raise over $220,000 from just 114 donors. So first and foremost, send 2 direct mail appeal letters. And these should be letters in envelopes with reply devices. Why? The more you ask, the more you receive. Secondly, promote your campaign in at least 7 emails. Now, you may be thinking 7 emails sounds like a lot. I don't want to spam our donor base, or I'm worried my board is going to think we're spamming everyone. The reality is that a lot of people give in those last 3 days of the year. So it's a good idea to have a couple, don't make them lengthy, but shorter emails, 2 to go out on December 31st, 1 on December 30th, and 1 on December 29th. That's 4 of your 7 right there. And you're talking about sending 7 emails over the course of about a month and a half. Third, post stories of impact. Talk about the accomplishments of the people that you're serving or those that you're working with. What are their accomplishments? And make them relatable to your overall year-end campaign story. So this is 30 to 40 social media posts in addition to your regular social media posts as part of your campaign. Text messaging. Now, not all CRMs are created equal, where you can necessarily send out a mass text message to all of your donors. If you can, that's a great opportunity, maybe on Giving Tuesday, to remind everyone that you're officially launching your campaign and what your Giving Tuesday goal is. But even if you don't have text messaging in your CRM, most of us have a phone at this point. For me personally, I love to make phone calls to people, whether it's a thank you call or even a call to say, hey, John, I don't know if you've seen that letter that we sent in the mail, but if you did come across it and you're able to give again this year, we would so much appreciate your support. And then using a text message, if I don't get him, just to send a quick message and say, hey, John, I just wanted to reach out, hoping you can support us again this year. Same thing with a thank you call. If you don't get someone, send a follow-up text. Finally, update and promote through your website. So there's a few different options here with your website. The must do is that you need to have a separate campaign page for people to give through. So that page should match the language that you're using online in those emails through direct mail, not just your regular everyday giving campaign page. You want this to be separate. You can also put a light box on your website so that immediately when people land on your website, they're invited to become part of your year-end campaign. Lastly, if you have capacity, you can redo your entire homepage. I've done this before for clients working with Solus Media, where we redid the homepage to match the entire year-end campaign, and that's another way to reinforce your message. I want to take a closer look at how we really personalize these direct mail letters. As Natasha said, you cannot use the word you too much in any letter. You want to use your donor's name, acknowledge their giving. And we're going to take a quick look here at a letter to someone who's a sustaining giver, as well as someone who gave some year, but not this year. So in a sustaining giving letter, if we look at this, this was the first letter. You can see the date was October 31st, 2023 to go out. Starts with their name and formal greeting. So let's just say it was Natasha. Dear Natasha, your 2023 gifts, so we're starting with that your, mean William Evans will be spending his holidays at home with his wife and children rather than in a homeless shelter. That is an emotional hitch. You can see we used a grainy black and white photo because it's going to perform better. His family of 4 was on the verge of losing their home. So there's the problem. There's the challenge. And then we go on in the letter to say, without the funds you shared, this is where he would be. But thanks to you. So now we have the donor as well as the organization as the guide. They didn't lose their home. We appreciate what they're doing. Your membership in Families First, so the monthly giving program, enabled us to intervene this year when he needed it most. Then we go on to say that the consequence of not giving would be that they would be on the verge of losing their home, and then inviting the donor to become part of the solution. And you'll see at the very bottom here, when you give, and this is just one suggested giving amount. So this is important. With your sustaining donors, you do want to send them your year-end appeal, but you don't want to ask for anything that's really above and beyond what they give monthly. Most people give monthly because they're on a budget. So you can think about your year-end campaign for your monthly givers as almost like adding a 13th month to the year, just one more gift. Now, if we take a look at the second letter that went out in December, this particular person, we didn't have photo consent for. But if you look at this, you are the reason I'm alive. That was a direct quote from someone that Raise Up Families had helped. That is an emotional tie and a way to really draw someone in. She wanted to tell her story, so she goes through. And what we really want to focus on in this letter is that use of variable data. Variable data is how we produce mass amounts of mail. So this is going to go out to 400, 500, 4,000. They're all just commas and zeros people. But we want to personalize these letters to the greatest extent possible. So if we look in this letter and we say preferred name, variable 1, variable 2, gift amount 1, 2, 3, variable 3, what does that mean? Well, let's take a look at the spreadsheet this came from. When you pull your data from your database and you're trying to decide who's going to be included in your database, you want to say, okay, what was their last donation amount and what are the suggested levels we're giving? Here's the thing. People don't want to have to think that hard. They want to be told what to do. They want to know what you need, and then they're going to make a decision as to whether they can fill that need for you or not. So in this particular instance, if we look at this spreadsheet, I just want to focus on those first 2 rows for a second. The 10,327.51, this was someone who regularly gives $10,000 through the mail. It is not always appropriate to ask someone for $10,000 or $50,000 or even $1,000, depending on the donor in the mail. But in this instance, we know that this person regularly gives $10,000 through the mail at year end. If you look at the second line, the last donation amount was $5,000. Well, that was a sponsorship for an event. But the donations they ordinarily make, either online or through the mail, are more in the $250 to $500 range. So it would be inappropriate to ask them for a $5,000 gift. So you want to eliminate those outlier gifts, go through your data, make sure it's appropriate for each donor. Now, if we look at this variable data, so variable data one, I know you already gave generously to raise up families this year. Thank you. Acknowledge them. Let them know that you see them. So many times we send out a year-end campaign letter and we don't say, hey, we know you already gave this year. And the donor's sitting there going, why are you asking me for money? I already gave to you this year. But if we tell them, we know you gave, we appreciate it. Your support stabilized faith, but we need your help now more than ever before. So if we go back and look at our letter and we see where this comes in, so here's where it is. Natasha, thank you for your gifts. We know you gave this year. This is what your money helped do. Now, variable two, when we're looking here, we go back to our spreadsheet. If one final gift, and then we're going to go to those gift amounts of $5,000, $2,500, or even $10,000, back to the variable data, is within reach for you today, it, back to our letter, will ensure our ability to transform the lives of more hardworking, loving parents like hers in the months and weeks ahead. So utilizing a mail merge strategy to create that authentic, appreciative, custom message to your donor will increase your response rates. We are sending out this presentation after this, and so you will have time to go through everything. We're not going to go through all of these, but just a few I want to highlight. Number one, in mail, black and white is going to perform better than color. However, a colored envelope is more likely to get opened than a black and white envelope. You can also increase your open rate by hand addressing envelopes. That is a great activity for volunteers or board members to support your year-end campaign. Make sure you have a letter going out as early as possible. And then the other big key to having a successful year-end campaign is a matching donor. Whether it's one donor or a group of donors, having that matching donor will increase your response rate. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Roberta.
Wow, Angie, and Natasha, just so much great information. Like Angela said, don't worry about it. We're going to send out the PowerPoint afterwards and a recording of the webinar for you to have some of all that at your fingertips to come to later. If you're like me, you probably took a lot of notes and you're really, really excited. And if you're like me, you also look at your to-do list and go, I don't know where this is going to fit in. But we also know that year-end campaign is essential for the success of your organization next year because so much of the fundraising happens. So we have a year-end campaign strategy offer for you. We know that you're perfectly capable of doing this, but you may not have the bandwidth or could use your time in other areas, building relationships, running your organization. So we have 9 slots available for what we're offering. It's called an Amplify Strategy Session. 9 organizations to sign up. The first 9 to do this, you will book a 90-minute strategic consultation with our marketing and fundraising experts. And you'll get a customized year-end story crafting for each channel, comprehensive timeline, content planning, an Excel donor list setup with segmentation recommendations, and fundraising letter framework. So make this off of your to-do list and your done list. We're going to help you make it doable. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can scan that QR code if you want to book it, or Carrie is dropping it in the link. I'm also going to send out an email after this again with our survey and with information on how to sign up for the session. And we do have a bonus offer if you sign up by the 27th. Number one, that gives you enough time to actually plan because we know this requires a lot of planning, but you also get a 1-hour bonus of consultation to review your written appeals. And this package is offered to you for only $14.95. Last year, Angela helped Raise Up Family raise over $222,000 from just 114 donors. And so $14.95 is minimal whenever you compare it to the extra that you will bring in to have your best year ever. So there's that offer. We are so excited to offer that to you. And we are now going to go into our Q&A session. And so I'm going to read off some questions and let Angela and Natasha take these answers. So our first question, Angela, you talked about the letters. Should the 2 pages be front and back letter or 2 separate pages? That's a great question.
It is a good question. Front and back. So the whole idea with the letter being 2 pages and being black and white is in mail, it just makes people feel like you really need the money more if you go with the cheapest paper possible, make it black and white, and just make sure that in the footer you put in parentheses over, please.
Okay, that's great. And so, speaking of black and white, should the infographics be in black and white also? That was our next question.
I would not include an infographic in a direct mail letter. Online, your infographics should be full color, they should be beautiful, they should be pretty. In print, I would not put an infographic in a letter.
Okay, that is very, very helpful to know. Okay, our next question comes from Natasha Fish from Being Bold. And she said, for number 5 on your communications, it says, did you say that the black and white performs better in print and to use color in digital communications, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And she also asked, can you explain more about the different levels of giving 92%, 100%, or 107%? She says, are those percentages of their previous gifts, and why did you choose those percentages?
Yeah, it's not an exact science. I mean, you could go with 87% of a gift or 115% of a gift. It's just to give them different amounts to choose from. Typically, I look at their last gift, but again, I go through, I don't care if I have a list of 2,000 or 25,000 people to go through. I go through at least those top 20% of donors and make sure that we're asking for an appropriate amount.
Okay, very helpful. And one more for you, Angela. How important are these print letters? Tell us. Are the studies on effectiveness versus strictly going digital, and is it worth a hassle? And I know what you're going to say.
So it's fascinating to me. Yes, king mail is still king. People are, and this is from MobileCause. Keep in mind, donors are 3 times more likely to give online in response to a letter they receive in the mail as opposed to an email. The other thing that will increase your response rate is including a reply device in your direct mail appeal. So versus just a QR code. What's fascinating is that even when you include a reply device, people may choose to give online, but the simple act of having a reply device in your letter is going to increase your response rate. It is 100% worth the effort.
It is.
And I would add to that, there are actually several studies that have shown the importance of this. So Stanford Social Innovation Review, Data and Marketing Association, there's a ton of research out there on the effectiveness of print campaigns, which is why huge nonprofits still use them as well. So like Angie said, you cannot say that base the success based on how many checks you're getting back in the mail, because people are also using that to scan and go online to donate. There's something about holding that piece of paper, and it's more tangible. So I would say, yes, please do use print. And also, I pushed back on Angie on this one. Actually, I had hired her as a development consultant, but she had shown me the importance of this, and now I will never go back. Always do print.
Always do print. The data doesn't lie, right? Well, Natasha, will you take our last question that we have time for? I think we'll do one more question and then we'll kick off our survey. And if people want to stay on for additional questions, if you have a few more minutes, because we do want to be respectful of everybody's time, because I think we said 30 minutes. So will you answer from Anne-Marie Smith, how do you balance social posts and emails when you are also launching events, new products, and an annual campaign in the same 2 months?
Yeah, so Angie does not recommend having an event at the same time as your year-end campaign. I have done a lot of events at year-end, and I would say there are pros and cons, but I would say if you can have your year-end campaign stand alone and just have one type of messaging at that year-end, reserve that so that when you are actually creating your whole communications plan for the entire year, you're not rolling out too many messages during those last 2 months. That's going to be much more beneficial. Now, it's already the end of 2024. If you already have stuff going on, continue with your plans and just make sure that you actually have a calendar, because when you have so many different competing messages going out, you want to make sure that you're not having 3 different kind of communications going out on the same day, right? So a content calendar is going to be your best friend and going to keep everybody on the same page and sane with emails, print, and social media posts going out. So, Angie, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you're 100% on target.
That is so great. Yes, the key of messaging is clear, and having too many things coming at you is not clear. So, let's go on to our survey. I want to give you guys a chance to take launch on and sign on and take the quick survey. It'll take you about 30 seconds. If you can scan that QR code, or Carrie will also drop the link in the chat, and take about 30 seconds to give us your feedback. We really value your feedback. We like to do these webinars on a consistent basis to help you guys do the amazing work that you do. And also, 2 participants of the survey will be entered, or will win a $100 credit toward a marketing project with Solus Media. So a little thank you for taking the 30 seconds to fill that out. And so if you need to pop off, that's fine. I want to say one last thing. Just announce, save the date for your calendars for October 22nd at 11 a.m. We will do our next webinar on Gifts as Stock 101 and how to grow your non-cash giving. I'm so excited to partner with Carnegie on this. Again, so much wealth of information. So thank you all for coming today. I'll be sending out the presentation along with some other tools to help you implement these. And don't forget to sign up for one of our 9 strategy sessions to take it off your to-do list and onto your done list. And so Angela and Natasha, do you have time to answer a few more questions if anybody wants to stay on?
Yeah, I think we can continue
Absolutely.
to finish these questions. But yes, thank you everyone for joining us. If you have to hop up, we totally understand. Yeah, let's go on.
Okay. All right. So one of the questions was, can you repeat the days in December and the number of recommended and email texts? That one came from Amy Fuller.
Yep. So December 31st, I would send at least 2 emails, December 30th, 1 email, and December 29th, 1 email. And then over the course of your campaign, you want about 7 emails and 30 to 40 social media posts.
Okay, perfect. And then how long do you recommend that we run the year-end campaigns? I know we recommended kicking off at the end of October. What's the ideal time frame for that?
Yeah. So when we look at year-end campaigns, we kick off the end of October. I always take a little bit of a break around the Thanksgiving time to really do a lot of stewardship. I know, Natasha, you've always done a great job with stewardship around that time as well. And then relaunch or officially kick off the campaign on Giving Tuesday.
So it's like
Absolutely.
a soft launch at the end of October. You're introducing it so that they're prepared and ready whenever you do the main launch, Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, it's that priming behavior, right? Because marketing is about memorization. I heard that and I was like, that is so true. So you've got to just stay on top of their mind. So when they're ready to give, then yours is the one that they're going to give to. So here's a great question. What are your thoughts on sending a folded card in place of a letter?
Natasha, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I went to the Nonprofit Innovation Summit last week, which was all about fundraising and kind of these, there's a lot of information about like appeal letters. And I would say there's not a lot that you can fit into a folded card. And that feels very much like you're getting a thank you card. So I feel like a lot of people might put that aside and be like, oh, that's going to be a thank you card. Great. It kind of feels unexpected to get an ask that way. So that's my recommendation, would just be to stick with the letter and keep it simple, because a lot of the work that Next After, a marketing research organization, has done is that those letters and those very kind of personal letters, when you're making that ask, perform much better.
It is interesting. There are seasons where postcards do really well in the mail, or those folded cards do, but it's more if you're marketing an event or marketing
Right.
something specific rather than an ask. The other thing you have to remember is that part of the purpose of a letter is to be able to tell your story and share your impact. And so someone may receive that letter in the mail, they may not give this year, but they may read it, and it starts to set in for them what it is you do, why it's important, and how they can make a real difference. And like Natasha said, it's hard to do in a folded piece.
That being said, I'm also all about trying things. So if you decide that you wanted to try it out and put a QR code that has like a tracking link that you can specifically, people are using that QR code is only tied to that card, and you want to see how many people scan and give that way, try it out. Let us know what happens.
But when you do test, we always recommend doing a test and control, because otherwise you won't have
Yes.
anything to compare it against.
Absolutely.
Speaking of comparing against data, that brings us to David. I love that you asked this question. What if this is your first year raising money and have no historical data points? And we know other people are like you, so I'm so glad. This is a great question.
Yeah. Hi, David. I think I would break down your goal. So, what is your goal that you want to raise this year? And then what's it going to take from everybody to reach that goal? That's kind of a great place to start and really just break it down into something that's palatable for folks. I would still give them a few different giving options and let them know the impact of their gift.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, next question kind of tags along with what we said earlier. This is from an anonymous attendee. If you're wanting to launch a monthly giving campaign, would you recommend including that in the year-end campaign or separating them? And if separating them, how would you time monthly giving? Go ahead, Natasha. You look like you're bursting to answer this.
Angie and I had a long discussion about this, but definitely do not do monthly giving campaigns for your year end. That is a completely separate type of campaign. People are going to give those like $1,000, $5,000 gifts right now, and you want to make sure that you're capitalizing on that season of generosity. Whereas in monthly donations, people are giving, $25, $100 a month, $300 a month, and so keep them separate. I would say, but please, if you do not have a monthly giving campaign, it is time to start. 2025 is the year.
Yeah, how would you time it? What is your recommendation on that? I think was a follow-up, right?
So studies show that launching a monthly giving campaign late January and early February is a great time to do that. And the psychology behind it is that a lot of people, because of New Year's resolutions, have this kind of residual guilt, right? Like, I want to be a better person, I want to volunteer more, I want to give back. And so it's a really good time to really tap into those feelings of wanting to improve and make the world a better place. People also have a tendency to have some residual guilt about how much they indulged over the holidays and realize that they could do more. So that's a great time. And then typically, it really depends on your mission. We want to take a look at what your organization does, what are timely events that occur within your cycle to run a secondary monthly giving campaign throughout the year.
Yeah, and I just add to that I've done a lot of summer monthly campaigns, and while I'm not saying it's the best time of the year, I'm just saying that if you didn't have enough time, say to get started, you've done a year-end campaign, and maybe you haven't planned to launch a monthly giving campaign in January or February, you could take a few months, plan that, and then launch that in the summer too.
Yes, planning is key, and doing it well trumps just getting it out there. So that's why we're here to help you guys with these tips. So, you all talked about mail merge. Can you recommend? This one comes from Kelly Vaughn. Can you recommend a few of the best mail merge applications?
Yeah, Kelly, we really just use Excel as the easiest way to do a mail merge. It speaks directly to Word, and that's been the easiest way to do it. Some people I know use Publisher. So if you're using Excel and Publisher, that can work as well.
Okay, thank you. Our next question comes from Glenn. Glenn says, we've been doing a very nice multi-page color magazine for year end in November, and is it worth it?
Natasha, you've done some great work for the landing with those multicolored page books. What are your thoughts on that?
I didn't test them against a control. So, I mean, I wish I did because I could tell you more if it's worth it. But now that I have learned not only from Angie, but also from this fundraising summit that I went to last week, I would say that I would just go with this with simple for your print. However, if you're talking about doing, say, like an impact report to share the recommendations, those you want people to be able to pick up and want to keep going through the impact reports. I'd say spending money on those really nice annual reports and making them colored, good paper weight, and all of that is going to be, I feel like, very, very beneficial. And that's also been tested to be really worth it for people to be see the impact that way, give via your letter. So again, if you want to try it this year, since you've been doing the multi-page color, do the multi-page color and test that with a really simple black and white as well, and have different QR codes to link to your giving page and see where you get the most response.
Yeah, that is great. Very, very helpful. We're always willing to learn too. So if something's out there that we haven't heard about, please share. We're all here to work together to help make an impact. So that's great. Our next question comes from an anonymous attendee. What are your thoughts on buying mailing lists?
Yeah, I've purchased a lot of lists over time, and the companies are getting better and better at being able to target people who have an affinity towards organizations like yours. The key to remember is that first of all, this is acquisition. Acquisition in and of itself is always going to lose. So you need to be very clear with your finance department, with your board, that we're not looking to make money on acquisition. What happens with acquisition, if you get a 1 to 3% response rate, and keep in mind, you need to mail that list over and over and over and over again. It's not a one and done. So when you purchase that list, you're going to market to them constantly. So it's not just your 1 year end appeal. You need to be sending them probably 6 to 8 pieces a year to start to get them, like Roberta said, warmed up and thinking about your mission. So it is definitely a commitment, and there's an expense associated with it. Where you have to look at the ROI is that if you convert 0.5% of the people on that list and they become sustaining givers, and sustaining givers eventually become your best planned givers. So direct mail acquisition in terms of ROI is a long play for your entire organization over the course of 20 to 30 years.
And I would say that a lot of mostly, most nonprofits are not huge. And I would say like maybe like this might not be the best use of your money. Like I would say stewarding your donors, talking to people that you know and that have a relationship. People give to people, right? And so I think that's an important thing to remember as well.
If you were going to make a spend, I would recommend an ad spend on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Very helpful. Thank you. Oh, this is another great question from an anonymous attendee. Is the reply device, is it just a link or an actual return envelope?
Yep, a reply device is an actual, whether it's a card that they fill out. I've actually moved to using a full 8.5 by 11 sheet. I don't know if you're like me, but every time I go to fill out a card, I'm thinking like my handwriting isn't that small. And so we've started creating full pages for people to fill out with a return envelope. I do not recommend putting postage on your return envelope for it to come back, but an actual, when we say reply device, we mean an actual piece that they fill out and can send back in.
Okay. Do you also put a QR code on them on there?
I do actually. In addition to that, we put the website where they can donate as well as a QR code all on the reply device. Some people send the sheet back in and say, donate it online. I don't know why. But other people will fill the sheet out, send it in with a check, or even fill out their credit card information on the sheet and send it back in. You just don't know what donor preferences are. So it's a good idea to give them as many options as possible. Again, from a psychology standpoint, including that reply device really tells the donor, we need your help. We want to make it easy for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're also known as remittance cards too. So
Yeah, making it easy and being able to really resonate with all your donor types is key, right? Without cluttering stuff. So that's very helpful. Thank you. Now, our next great question comes from Andrea. Andrea says, we're moving to an every other year gala and fundraising format. Should we mention in our end of year letter that we won't be hosting the annual fundraiser in 2025 and planning smaller, more intimate events?
I think that's a great question. I think it depends how you mention it. If you're saying that because we're moving to every other year, we need your support now more than ever because it's impacting our fundraising this year. If you're using it as a way of letting people know the sense of urgency, I think that's one thing. Other than that, no, your year-end message should strictly be one message about one person that you've helped and keep it very simple and streamlined.
yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't mix messages here, and people aren't thinking about that this year. I would have a completely separate message about the fundraiser for next year.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
just have
very
four more questions in case
Okay.
people are wondering.
Yeah, and again, y'all are welcome to pop off. I love that so many people are interested in staying on. I'm learning a lot too. So, our next question from an anonymous attendee is, should your end year campaign have a specific theme?
Natasha?
I think it should, but the most important thing is the story. But so whatever the theme is, please make it sure that it goes along with the story. And that just helps you with your marketing and your branding for your year-end campaign. It's easier to have, it's easier to market and promote your year-end campaign when you do have a theme to go along with it. But again, make sure it ties to your story.
Something to keep in mind too is when it comes to your direct mail marketing. I used to work for Mercy Home for Boys and Girls, and their theme every year for year end was Christmas is stupid. And it was a story about a kid who told Father Scott, the president and CEO of the organization, that he thought Christmas was stupid and went on to why. At Raise Up Families, we use the same theme every year, a home for the holidays. So there may be something that resonates within your agency that is going to be true year after year after year, and people come to expect it and to see it. And once they have that known factor in there, it does create more affinity for your year-end giving year over year.
Yeah, I love that. So you can keep the same theme every year, or you can change up your theme year to year. So I like that.
I like that. And I like tying it into your story. That's what's key, right? And those examples that you gave, Angela, tied into the theme of your story of what those nonprofits did. Great. Okay, our next question from an anonymous attendee. Any suggestions for how to broaden your donor base? Feel like we could spend all day on that.
That should be the topic of another webinar.
Right, yes.
True. Expanding your donor base. So a huge part here, and I hate to say this, and full disclosure, the day I retire, I'm going to make one last post to LinkedIn that says linked out, right? But in reality, social media is one of the best ways to broaden our donor base, and getting people, our board members, our volunteers, people who have been impacted by our missions, to share our story. And I think in terms of broadening your donor base, Natasha can speak more to this. I've had the most success with it when we're really crafting compelling stories that people can share out.
Yeah, and one thing that I would say, this is the importance of getting your team, your board involved, right? And asking them who they know and creating personal texts and emails that they can send out themselves. So that's something that I talk about a lot and I think is really, really helpful, is whenever you actually, so for example, you have a board of 10, you write a text message for those board members and you actually text it in a group thread that they can copy and paste it and send to people they know. It's one of the easiest way to start broadening your base, especially as you're getting new board members, right? So there's not just those same, same set of 10 board members for 5 years, right? You're constantly getting new board members, and this might be the first time that they're asking. So you just want to make it easy for them to ask. That's what you're trying to do, is make it easy for your team to get involved. Don't make them go and pull from your newsletter or your e-blast and then try to figure out a text message. Like, help them out by writing those emails for them that they can personalize. So I would say, and that's what I had to do, right? From starting a nonprofit from 0 donors to, growing them to over 300 in a few years. Like, that's what we had to do, is make sure to get people involved.
Love it. Great answers. Thank you. Okay, Glenn asked our next question. And I love that Glenn asked this, because I'm that person that's like, tell me exactly what you did and how you did it. I know there's information, but I don't know exactly what you did. So Glenn asked, what's your go-to envelope color?
There's no set color for it. I will say brighter colors are going to work better. So like a bright yellow or a bright blue or a red or a green than something that's more pastel. It should correspond with your, your campaign. So I would not be inclined to use a yellow envelope at year end, because people are thinking about red and green. I would be more inclined to use a red envelope at year end, but definitely look at bright colors.
Right. Bright goes well. Great. Okay, we got a couple more questions left. How large, Natasha asked a great question. How large of a donor base do you need to perform a control test?
You can do a test and control with, 50 donors. If you had a small donor base, you just want to make sure that you want to break them apart so they're a relatively equal sampling, right? So you don't want to break apart. Well, our test group is people who have only given us $50 and below, and our control group is people who have given us $51 and above. So you just want to make sure that there's a nice mix in there.
Okay, great. Okay, we're down to our last question by an anonymous attendee. I wish you would have put your name. It's okay. We like names. That's okay. But what's included in your end of year campaign offer? It's going to see if Sunny can go back to that screen. I'm also going to email this out following the webinar today with the information on it, so you'll have access to this. But here's a quick snapshot of the Amplify strategy session. You'll book your date online, and we'll start off with a 90-minute strategic consultation with our marketing and fundraising experts, Natasha and Angela, and then customize year-end story crafting for each channel, comprehensive timeline. I could read all this, but Angela or Natasha, why don't you, anything you want to share about this offer?
The one thing I want to share about this offer is that we put together a strategy packet that you will be able to use year after year after year. And it really is the brainchild of everything Natasha and I have done for the last 15 years in working with nonprofits and helping them grow. I wish someone would have given me this template somewhere along the way and helped me really walk through it, because it does make things very easy.
There we go. We're here to make it easy because we know that you have a lot on your plate already.
And helping to make decisions quickly, right? So I know this is kind of like looming over a lot of people's heads. So like that we're gonna sit down with you make all these decisions and come up with that plan with you. And so I think that that's what the purpose is. We just want to make sure that it's helpful, and that you'll have a great year-end campaign. Roberta, there's a couple more questions in the chat.
Yep, I saw that one. Well, I saw one. So here we go. Let's see. We got our question. It says for people who give on Giving Tuesday or early December, they don't like getting continued emails and asks. Do you have any recommendations? And that's from Amy Fuller. Thanks for asking that, Amy. Great question.
Yeah, it is a great question. And we were negligent in putting this out there. Once someone gives to your year-end campaign, stop asking them for money. Okay, so if they've already given, you send something out, they give on Giving Tuesday. At that point, it's just donor stewardship. So it's really important as people give to remove them from the next mailing, to remove them from that next email. They're going to see what they see on social media. There's nothing you can do about that. And people are generally pretty understanding, knowing that you're not targeting them on social. But once they give, remove them to be respectful.
Mm. That's great. And you talked about that even in your letters and personalizing them. So donor stewardship is big. It is a lot of work, but it's also it pays and it makes a big difference. And that's where Angela really excels in that. So that's great. That was all the questions I see. Did you see a different one,
Nope,
Natasha?
that's it.
Okay. Wow. So many people still stayed on. Again, we are so grateful for everyone. Natasha and Angela, thank you for all the prep work that you did and just sharing your wealth of knowledge. Hope everyone books their calendars for our October 22nd webinar. We'll be sending out that registration link soon. Thank you for the great work that you do, and I hope everyone has a successful end of year campaign. Have a great day.